Peace family, 19 Keys tapping in. Man, hopefully the family is doing well today. All right. So today I had a beautiful message on the mind, something that I wanted to deliver to the people. And I think that everybody's going to be grateful regardless of who you are and where you stand in this political cycle, right? Because that's what we are in, a political cycle. I wanted to give, and I'm not going to be able to do the full breakdown, but I've been studying a lot of different things, but specifically history and context to how we got to where we are as Black Americans, as Americans, as America, right? And I wanted to get to a very deep point about it because one thing that I see a lot of times, right? There's rhetoric that'll tell you not to vote at all. There's rhetoric that'll tell you that absolutely vote. There's rhetoric that'll tell you our ancestors died for our right to vote. There's rhetoric that'll tell you that you have to pick a side. There's rhetoric that'll tell you that it's more important to save the system and work within a system that we know than the devil that we don't. There's so many different points, and each point has some truth in it, right? The lifelong battle within the Black diaspora, specifically within America when it comes to consciousness, is the fact that there has always been this battle between those who believe working within the system, right? And then those who believe working outside the system. This has been going on and raging for the last 100 plus years, right? It has never been a time that we have collectively agreed upon a mechanism towards our liberation. There's always been the W.E.B. Du Bois, Thurgood Marshalls, the Marcus Garveys, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's, right? There's always been this, and I'm talking about going back to the early 1900s, about what is the right methodology and or way, how much of the system should we utilize and or depend on, and what is that balance, right? Because I think what we haven't found is the balance, and what we should be able to see today is the foresight of understanding hindsight and foresight, right? Of understanding what worked, what didn't work, what should we continue to press on and apply. Because what I'm seeing is, unfortunately, I'm seeing too much short-sightedness when we're going for and we talk about utilizing our force, right? It's too much short-sightedness because I'm not seeing enough 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 year, 100 year plans. And that's where I wanted to take a step back for myself and study and present a plan to save ourselves. That's the goal. Like, I'm not a person that is completely against the utilization against the government whatsoever, because all things are tools that can be used in your strategy depending upon your campaign. But you have to have a campaign and you have to organize for those things to matter, right? So I want to get to a few different things. A lot of times, and here's the biggest one, is like our ancestors died for our right to vote. I think this is the one that needs to be addressed the most, because we're only talking about a certain time period when we're addressing that, which is particularly like the civil rights movement. But we don't study what was before the civil rights movement, because by the time we got to the civil rights movement, we were a destroyed people. We lost a lot. Our radical tradition had lost. That a lot of that revolutionary spirit had been lost. Why? Because we were coming on the heels of, right, so many assassinations, number one. Or in that era, of course, the Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X's, right? Even the John F. Kennedy, but even before that, of course, many will talk about all of the revolutionaries before that who had been assassinated by this government specifically. And I think that that's something that I might say lightly, but I think it's something that we need to understand. Like, Black men who have stood up and fought for liberation in this country, and Black women who have stood up and fought for liberation in this country, historically was assassinated by the government. I didn't say Democrats or Republicans. I said the government, because this is where they had, agreement, right? The FBI and things of that nature. White supremacy agreed upon the issue of, Black freedom fighters as an issue, and our collective organizing as a problem. So, but let's go deeper than that. Let's understand something, right? Many of our ancestors died for a lot of things. Malcolm X, when Martin Luther King, when he died, he realized that he had integrated into a burning house. He realized that even though he was sending his people, right, and he was fighting for something, he was in the wrong fight. That's what he realized. And there's not enough discussion upon that statement and that idea, number one. So when we talk about our ancestors died for our right to vote, we're not talking about Martin Luther King, because he was assassinated by the very government, right? And he was murdered because he wanted to start talking about economic rights, right? And I'm sure essentially would have got to human rights and our global allies in our fight. But I want to take us back to the 1920s, because when you study the history of Black America's social movements, what you're going to see is the picket signs change. The signs that we have in the streets change. And this is something that I'll be making a post right after this. So in the 1920s and the 30s, you will see some of the signs talking about ownership and freedom and do for self. And a lot of those times it'll be talking about, you know, Pan-Africanism and, you know, how do we go upon, like one of the signs that was in the streets was a very dope one. It was saying that how many farms that we own and how many acres of land that we own. Like they was in the streets with a sign marching, right? Showing what we own. Think about that for a second. In modern day, we don't have those type of marches. There was a silent march, right? So, and this is something that I would love to bring back. Because instead of a march that is a protest against the system, I want it to be a march, right? That is a protest, or that is a march to get the attention of our people to build upon a movement that is growing and that is starting. Because a lot of times our marches and our activisms are often from a place of, they're from a place of victimhood, right? And they're not from this place of victory. And what we need in today's time is more hero tales and more victory. So imagine if all the farmers outside marching saying that, look, we own 1 million acres of land. We have done this amount of investments. We have this amount of assets. We have this amount of power. We're not asking for anything. We are here to save ourselves. And the new American mind, right, is to be fearless and go for what you want beyond any means and get it on your own merit, and at the same time act in collective responsibility. Because the picket signs changed from the era of the Marcus Garveys, right, to the era of the civil rights movement. But you have to understand what happened in between those times. Of course, we had World War II. And during the loss of World War II, it actually hit a lot of the black movements very hard, because a lot of those movements, you have to remember, were in direct ties and connection to the Japanese, who they thought was going to help us defeat white supremacy. And we was looking at it as a global ally. So when the World War II was lost and they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, they didn't just drop that bomb on Hiroshima, right? That bomb also became a devastating symbol of the power of white supremacy, how far they was willing to go, and it hit the movements very hard that was essentially pushing propaganda with pro-Japan sentiments. And so a lot of those movements broke apart. You had Minnie Maud, who had the Ethiopian Brotherhood, right? And you had many other ones that was in connection to the Black Dragon Society and things of that nature that had ties, because there was a lot of Japanese businessmen who came here early in Detroit and St. Louis that was helping out black people specifically, right, with entrepreneurship, economics, technology, things of that nature. So we had a lot of these allied things that we was focusing on, because we looked at white supremacy, right, as the ultimate enemy. And anybody that found an enemy of our enemy became an ally of us. And we started to do cultural exchange, and we started to learn from each other, right? And therefore we was able to start building out movements, and we started to share what will work on your side, what could work on our side. And what we've lost is our global campaign. What we lost the most about our movements today is our global campaign and our sense of economic power as a tool for liberation. We say we've now minimized it to financial literacy. But financial literacy does not equal economic power. Not if there is not an organizing force behind it. And this is what's important, because when you look at, and this is why it's important to have a collective ideology about what is it that you want and what is it that you're organizing for and what agenda that you're pushing, right? There is a black agenda. There are many of them. But there is not one particular agreed upon black agenda, because then it would be so much easier for us to organize around our agenda to get what we want based on who's ever presenting, right, the closest to giving us what we want. So then what it would mean is that your vote becomes a tactic and a strategy versus a savior. Because right now, the metaphor of the vote is it is going to save you. It is a savior. Versus that it's a part of the plan and the strategy. And I know you all waiting for me to tell you who to vote for. But I don't think that that's my place. I can't tell you who to vote for besides yourself. And I say that in your heart of hearts, whether you believe that this vote, and I'm not talking about the president, forget the president, down the ballot, because I believe in things like Prop 6. I believe in Prop 6. I believe in voting against, right, the private prison industry that is able to put those brothers to work without them making a dime. And it is supplying black bodies to a factory, right, of a slave industry that has been working for years. And if these were the things that would champion more, I think that we would have a more feverish attitude and the utility and the value of it. Now, I'm too young to be president. Y'all, I can't actually run for president. I'm too young. I don't meet the minimum requirements. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate everybody that was gonna vote me in and put me on the ballot. You know, I might have got 19% of the vote. I just might have got 1.19% of the vote. I'm too young, man. I'm still a young man. You know that's an old man's game. You know what I'm saying? You know that's an old man game. And then when you become president, you age in dog years. You know what I'm saying? My beard will be white one time I get out of that presidency seat. I'll be stressed to death. You know what I'm saying? And it's also a lose-lose, because it's not, I'm gonna be honest, as a president, it's like one of the worst positions, because it's also, no matter what you do, you lose. Right? If you get in there too radical and you don't have the Congress, you can't make change. Right? If you start pushing all these executive orders, then they start pushing back on you. Right? You do one thing for one group, then another group wants your head for it. Right? It's almost as if the only thing that satisfies the American people for a president is money. If you can make the people the most amount of money and produce economic prosperity for the people during your time of reign, that's how you become loved the most. It's not the social issues, it's not the social candidates, it's the money. Because America grades itself, right, based on money. It's a capitalist society. We're not the highest in joy. We're not the highest in health. We're not the highest in education, right? We're not the highest in quality of life. We're not the highest in peace. We're not the highest in technology. We grade ourselves on money. And this is why America will stay in a sad position. Because America is not in any position to be a moral police of anybody. We definitely don't have the high moral ground whatsoever. We back a genocide, so that's never going to be it, right? Our children literacy rates are failing. We have one of the highest obesity rates, highest prison populations, right? One of the sickest populations for a so-called first world country. We're not leading in technology and artificial intelligence or science. And we're waning our power on influence. America has high levels of mental illness and confusion at an all-time high. The chemicals, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, right, that are utilized within our food. Oh man, it's bad. It's very bad. So this is why when it comes to the conversation about the presidency, we're not even addressing the real issue. We're not. And when it comes to politics, and it's more so not about being against that, it's more so about evolving the conversation. Because I can look at things from both sides, and it's always that thing that you got to pick and choose. You can never get the world you want. And who wants that? I want the utopian now. I want what we want now, but you only get that through revolution. You only get that through radical change, because that is radical. To think that, you know, one thing that Trump has that I like on his side is to make America healthy again. With Robert F. Kennedy leading, not to say that they're going to produce every change, but at least it's in the conversation. It's not at the forefront of conversation on the Kamala side, and it should be. How are we going to skill the next generation? And it needs a radical overhaul of the education system in order for that change to be produced. We need to make America green, meaning that we need more greenhouses. We need more farm-to-table programs in America. We need to cut out so much corporate control, but the problem is that they are the ones putting the money behind the political forces. Beyonce last night, I'm gonna tell you, man, she looked beautiful up there on that stage. Beyonce was shining so much, I damn near would have voted for her myself. She was looking presidential. I was buying whatever she was selling. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Y'all can say what y'all want. I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. I don't give a damn. Y'all can't act like Beyonce wasn't stunning and looking like the picturesque of black women in America. She was up there fine. She was looking good. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna. Now, one thing I can say is, you know, that they campaign looks better for sure. Cause the saggy face old white man, that ain't no picturesque America. You know what I'm talking about? One thing them Dems do got, they got some beautiful black people on them stages. I will say that. The best them Trumpers could get was Amber Rose. That one thing I can say. Beyonce was up there looking stunning. I said, man, damn, what's she talking about? I almost went and registered instantly. I said, let me go ahead and go do early voting for this sister. Goddamn, what's going on? Kelly up there with the box suit, with the big old 1950s box suit. You know, still looking like a melanated goddess. Well, I said, goddamn, these sisters, boy, don't even bring Kamala on stage. Let them keep talking. I said, let them keep talking. Is this her cabinet? If this her cabinet, I'm voting for this kitchen. It was looking good. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's one thing I can say. Boy, you can't compete with that. Hey, don't try to compete with black women at all, number one. You know what I'm saying? But they was up there looking good. I don't care. Look, even the Trump people was in there watching that. What's she saying? You know what I'm saying? What's she saying? Come on now. I ain't never seen Beyonce like speak in that manner and so eloquent in the way that she was on that stage. Man, you know she prepared for everything. She prepared for everything, so she was well prepared last night. But it's also got me thinking about how much of a, like, we've turned this political season
into such a show. Like, it's a huge theater this time. Then on the opposite end, you got Joe Rogan and Donald Trump having a conversation. And I'll say one thing, I did see what Trump was saying. I didn't watch the whole 3-hour interview. That's too much Trump for me. But one thing that I seen him, as Joe Rogan was pressing him a bit, and I think he knew that he was going to press him, because he started to go into some parts of the conversation, and Joe Rogan was like, okay, yeah, we know that, but like, tell us this. And he was talking about the mistakes that he made when picking a cabinet. And I seen criticism of Kamala come from a commentator that was explaining how, I think it was Kevin O'Leary was explaining how when she was on Fox News, she should have just copped to her mistakes about the border or whatever else it was and said, yeah, we did that, we're gonna move forward. Right? And I think that that's true, because Trump makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, daily mistakes. He's probably making a mistake right now. But the willingness, and I'm not saying anything other about him than just this small part, from a strategic standpoint, the willingness to say I made a mistake, and he doesn't always do this, of course, in front of the people, is a good trait for a politician or somebody running for political office to do. And it is something that she needs to do to show the people, right, her ability to be transparent, her ability to have growth and things of that nature. And that's just me looking at it from a consultant lens and observing. Not that I'm looking for a savior in either one of them regardless, but there's things that you can take if you're learning and you want to become a leader yourself, that you can learn from both of them. The mistakes that's made, the strategy that's given, the marketing, the propaganda, the speaking points, how everything is being handled, things being covered up. There's a lot that you can learn. And this is what I do when I'm looking at these things. I'm not looking at it for the same reason. I'm learning throughout the process. And I think that that's where her team sucks at, just quite frankly. And, you know, they only had 7 months to put something together. But as an observer, as somebody that's studying this, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. You know, it's not what you're trying to do, it's what the people understand and what you can get them to accept. So intentions in this case do not matter, right? What matters is results. So you have to study what's going on, and then some of you all have too much emotions in this election cycle that you can't see good and bad from either side. The moment you like, fuck them, you fucked. Because you're not listening to either, regardless if they say something that could be beneficial for you or something that could be detrimental for you. You're no longer observing them. You become caught up in your own biases and emotions. And in political season, the goal is to get people emotional. Because once you get emotional, then they get your loyalty. Because now they got you against the other side. Because I've seen things that both sides do that they then will go derail the other side for doing. And I'm like, when you just doing that? Well, then they just doing that? Or if one person did and the other person did it, the way that the people view it is disrespectful. Like if Kamala does something that the Trumpers will look at and be like, oh, see, she did this. And this is something that I seen Van Jones say that I think he was truthful about. He say, Trump has to be, what did he say? What did Van Jones say about Kamala and Trump? Where he say,
he say, I got you right now.
Yeah, it really summed it up, and of course, but you have to understand what the thing about with Trump is, a lot of people they go vote for him regardless. Like, it is what it is, because he's not some picture of perfection that they looking for whatsoever. He is a picture of disruption for the status quo that they think is what they need. And for some people, that's what Kamala is. Oh yeah, she said that she has to be flawless and he can be lawless. which I think is true. But I also think that that's where you have to go and become a little lawless yourself. When going against a radical, you have to become radical. That's just the reality. Because regardless who becomes president, because it's going to happen, you're going to need to have a plan for yourself.